Do you struggle with playing in tune on the violin? Are you absolutely hating working with a tuner? I've got you covered. Hi, I'm violinist Heather Kaye. I specialize in working with dedicated adult violinists on improving their violin technique and playing with gorgeous tone. In this video, I'll talk about 10 tips to help you play more in tune on the violin. So first off, you want to make sure your violin is in tune. In order to have your violin in tune, you want to start with your open A string. And you do want to check that with a tuner to make sure that your A string is in tune. And then check your other strings as well with a tuner, that they're also in tune. It's not going to be beneficial to practice intonation on an out-of-tune foundation. So that's why it's so important to make sure your violin is in tune and to regularly check it as you're practicing. When the strings get old, they start to lose their accuracy and may go a little false. So they just don't have that accurate intonation as they start to get older. So if you're playing regularly and you're playing on strings that are over 5-6 months old, they could be the reason why you're not too happy with your intonation. Number two, when you are tuning your violin, it's a great opportunity to start to train your ear. So at first, when you don't know exactly if you're in tune or not, you do want to use that tuner. So you get your A in tune with a tuner, and that could be with a 440A, it could be a 441A, a 442A, whatever it is that you decide upon, make sure your A is in tune. And then what you can do is actually purposely make your A string out of tune and then have to tune it up again. I have an excellent video on how to tune the violin without a tuner, and I'll leave a link here for you to check it out. I'll go more in depth in that video on how to tune the violin. In this video, I'm just going to give you those tips on playing more in tune. So if you want more help in tuning your violin, check out the other video. Once you have the A string in tune, you can take it out of tune and then put it back in tune without the tuner and check with the tuner how accurate you were. You can do that with all the strings as well. So you can do that with your D string, have it in tune with the tuner, then take it purposely out of tune, put it back in tune and check yourself with the tuner. Now, as you're tuning the violin, when you're playing the two strings at once, you want to hear that they're locking in, that the sound waves lock in, okay? So this is a little bit advanced step in tuning if you are able to tune by tuning two strings. So you get your A string in tune and then go to your D. You want to listen that those sound waves are really locking in. So I'm going to take this out of tune. And you can hear those sound waves, they're not too happy. So the sound wave from the A string, the sound wave from the D string, they're not matching up. You can hear that they're also, I went sharp purposefully so you can hear what that sounds like. So you can hear how the sound waves are not lining up, and then when they do line up and sync, then that's when you know that the D string is in tune with your A string. After doing that, check with the tuner just to make sure that you are accurate and you are indeed hearing it correct. So let's go to tip number three. Tip number three, ringing notes. When you play a D and it's really in tune, you're going to hear that it continues to ring even after you stop playing it. So I'll check it with the open D, and I'll go a little sharp. Oh, not too happy. That just like hit me like a dagger when it's out of tune. And you want to be like that too. You want it when you hear a note out of tune, just have it be almost so painful that you just don't ever play out of tune. Ringing is a sympathetic ring. When we play the D, the third finger on the A, it's allowing this D string to ring. So we get an extra little sympathetic vibration as we play that note. Another good one is the third finger on the D string, and it'll continue to ring. Check it with your open G, okay? So that's a good test, are the ringing threes, as I call them, on all the strings. Another one you can check that's kind of fun, first finger on the G string is super in tune. For A, you're gonna actually see your A string vibrate. You'll visually see the A string vibrate. See if I can even get that in the camera. So you can see how the A string is vibrating there while you play. That's a really great way to just kind of visually have a checkpoint on the first finger on the G string and be able to visually see that sympathetic vibration. So these ringing notes just aren't third fingers. They're all your A's, D's, E's, and G's that live anywhere on the violin. After A, E, D, and G, your B's and F sharps are going to be really easy to hear. So you can even play your B and feel how that hits your ear and your F sharp. Okay, so those notes are also very easy to hear when you're training your ear. Now, there is a physical aspect of intonation. The ear is super important, and I will be discussing more about the training of the ear, but it's also very physically important how you are set up. If you have an unstable left hand, if you play on the G string like this, the E string like this, and you're constantly moving this hand around, flipping out, no matter what position you're in, that's going to not create a stable foundation for your intonation. Your fingers need to have some stability to help with consistency and accuracy. So when we're playing, we want to keep this hand as silent as possible. So I'll just play a G major scale in first position. So you can see from that angle, there's no flipping around, no moving around. I'm also going to do it from this angle. So you see how the hand stays very silent. We're not flipping out. When you flip out, that changes the angles of how the fingers come down, and just the slightest millimeter of a change of your finger can cause the note to be out of tune and to sound out of tune. So do watch that you have a silent left hand. The next step with that is the distance between the 1 and 4, the hand frame. So in first position, our hand frame on the A string is from B to E. Okay, and you want to have that hand frame feel really solid. It's really important to check the 1s and 4s in actually every position. And if you're a more advanced player, you can go jump right into the octaves, making sure that when your 1 and 4 come down, they come down together with perfectly in tune octaves. This really sets up the framework for excellent intonation and making sure that your hand is silent and getting trained properly between the 1 and 4. And you can do that exercise in every single position on the violin. So that brings us to tip number 5. Tip number 5 is actually to use a tuner. At the beginning of your violin journey, I would suggest using a tuner to help you know if you're relatively close to the pitch that you're playing. Always know your note names and never think numbers. If you're thinking your fingerings instead of the note names, you really have no clue exactly how that pitch is supposed to sound. How does a 1 sound? How does a 2 sound? We don't know. It could be played anywhere. But how does a D sound? How does a G sound? Okay, so you have to think your note names. Numbers are no help. Always know your note names and use a tuner to just double check. You don't want to get overly reliant upon a tuner at all, but at the beginning, it's a good place to start. So that brings me to tip number 6, how to get to know the pitches. Typically, when you learn the violin, you learn the pitches, you see the note on the page, you know what finger, what string, and you play along. But if you don't have a direct relationship to that pitch and how it sounds, it's going to be really hard to know if you're really in tune or not. So it's an excellent exercise to sit with a pitch for at least 3 minutes a day. Pick a pitch. So perhaps start with A and sit on A. What I mean by sitting on A, just play A anywhere on the violin. You can sit on the pitch, play the pitch for 3 minutes a day. And while doing so, be aware of what comes up. Maybe a memory, maybe a feeling in your body, maybe you feel that A in a specific place. How do you feel it in the ear? You know, just clear everything out and focus on that pitch for 3 minutes. And that is going to help you really get to know the pitches so that it will improve your intonation and speed up the process of getting to know the pitches. I have an excellent practice strategy for this. I've called it the pitch exploration, and it's a journaling process through the pitches. I will leave a link here that you can check it out and see if it's something that would be a good addition to your practicing to help you improve your intonation. It's completely 100% downloadable immediately, so you can get started right away. Tip number 7, listen for those sparkly notes or ringing notes even in flat keys. Flat keys are not friendly keys for the violin, and it can be very easy to go out of tune and just kind of lose your foundation or your basis of intonation playing in flat keys. But the key to playing in tune is to listen to the pitches on an individual basis. So as we're playing in the key of E flat, let's say B flat, E flat, A flat, our solid, wonderful, happy ringing note is G. Okay, so while you're playing within that key of E flat, you can listen that those D's and G's are still really super ringing. Now we can go definitely more into depth on intonation in flat keys, but that's my tip for you to get started and getting more in tune in flat keys. Number 8, marking your music. So if you give yourself visual reminders to help you out with your intonation, it will prepare you to tell your finger how to come down in time, hopefully, before it's heard that it was an out of tune note. So I'm just going to give you an example. I just pulled out my Bach sonatas and partitas, and this is the Sarabande D minor. And you can see here where I've written an arrow in to remind me that I typically play that a little high, so that needs to come down. You can do the same if you're playing a note that's a little low and you know that you have a tendency to play it a little flat, then to draw an arrow above the note for it to be higher. The other thing you can do that's really helpful is to mark your half steps and your whole steps. So this is, if you're playing a fast passage and it's in a difficult key, you're just not familiar where those half steps are really quickly, you can just easily mark it with an upside down V. So for example, let's say this A sharp B, just go ahead and write an upside down V so you know that that is a half step there. Tip number 9, make sure that when you're practicing intonation, you hear that the note is out of tune. Let's say, okay, so there we go. I had to find an out of tune note. Okay, so you hear that note is out of tune. All right, and I wanted to go to an A natural. We need to go to an A natural. So when you're practicing, you want to actually practice the note before you play the note that was out of tune. So you get that really in tune. Okay, let's say we're practicing our scales. Okay, we want to make sure that that string crossing is really clean and in tune. Practice always the note before the note that's out of tune and not just the note that's out of tune. So when you play an out of tune note, analyze, was it flat? Was it sharp? Why was it out of tune? What note, what finger was before that note, so you can analyze that finger relationship. Perhaps it was in a specific position, a specific string crossing. Really get in there and analyze, why was that note out of tune? Perhaps the finger just is not accurate within that position on that specific note in that specific key. Okay, and once you can understand these things and really get in there like a laser, you can help clean up that intonation and then practice so that your muscle memory is supporting you as well. Do make sure that your ear is turned on, you're always listening, and then you'll hear that it's out of tune, and then you can get into the physicality of it. Why is it physically out of tune? Why did it occur? Number 10, allow the pitch to be true. Make sure that every pitch, no matter where you're playing it on the violin, is perfectly in tune. That it's not covered up by the fact that you're playing up higher on the instrument and so it's a different tone color. That can be dangerous for thinking that it's in tune when it actually is not. So if we take F, for example, on the G string in third position, we want that F to sound so crystal clear that it sounds the same as an F in first. Of course, it's going to have a different tone color because it's up on the G string, but it's still F. and so it needs to still be F. And then double check while you're playing that you're in tune at all times to your open strings, as long as your open strings are in tune. Sometimes as we play, especially going up on the instrument, you might be getting sharp without knowing it. It might just be such an incremental little change that it's imperceptible to your ear if you're not thinking the identity of the pitch and the exact individuality, uniqueness of the pitch. And then you kind of morph into this different key even without even realizing it. So it's super important to always allow the pitches to be true, not to be influenced by the passage or to be influenced by the technique of shifting up higher on the instrument. Just always double check that those pitches are true. So those are my 10 tips for you to help you improve your intonation and to play more in tune on the violin. Don't forget to check out the PDF so you can get started on journaling through the pitches and getting to know them on a deeper level. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe for new videos every Saturday at 8 a.m. All right, take care. See you in the next video.